Ever feel like your dev team is split between meticulous architects and move fast and break things mavericks? On this episode of Consphere, we're diving into the great tech divide, expert coders versus vibe coders. We'll unpack the pros, the cons, and how this battle is reshaping the entire industry. No whiteboard required.
And that's why I think the new server architecture is fundamentally sound, even if it was a beast to set up. But it got me thinking about the way we build things. It feels like there's this huge unspoken divide in our industry right now. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, you're opening that door? I know exactly what you're talking about. It's the eternal clash, the methodical, read all the documentation first devs versus the let's just NPM install it and see what happens crew. The expert coders and the vibe coders.
Yes, those are the perfect names for them. It's like two different cultures, two different operating systems for the brain, working side by side. And I don't think it's a matter of one being inherently better than the other. They're just different, with massively different pros and cons.
Absolutely. Let's break them down. Who do you want to start with? The experts?
Let's do it. The expert coder. This is your classic computer scientist. They have a deep, almost foundational understanding of how things work. We're talking data structures, algorithms, memory management, system design patterns. They don't just use a framework. They understand the problem the framework was built to solve. Their code is a thing of beauty, clean, well-documented, scalable, and resilient.
The pros are obvious, right? You get rock-solid, maintainable code. It's like building a cathedral with a perfect foundation. It's built to last for decades. They're the ones who prevent catastrophic system failures because they've thought through every edge case. They're invaluable when you're dealing with massive scale, complex financial transactions, or anything where a tiny error costs millions.
But the cons, and I say this with love as someone who leans this way, is that they can be slow. Painfully slow from a business perspective. They can get stuck in analysis paralysis, designing the perfect, most elegant system for a problem that might not even exist in 6 months. There's a real risk of over-engineering, building a spaceship to go to the grocery store.
And sometimes that perfectionism can create a communication gap. They're speaking in terms of low-level optimizations, and the business side just hears, oh, it's going to take another 6 months. It can be a real friction point.
Now let's flip it. The vibe coder. This developer is all about intuition, creativity, and speed. They're the ultimate pragmatists. Their mantra is, get it working. They are wizards with high-level frameworks. They can cobble together a fully functional, beautiful-looking web app in a weekend. They're driven by user experience and immediate feedback.
The pros are a business leader's dream initially. Incredible velocity. They are perfect for the early stages of a startup, for prototyping, for validating ideas. They move at the speed of the market. They're not afraid to try new, cutting-edge tools and see what sticks. They bring a ton of energy and a focus on the end result, the vibe of the product, which is so important.
But the cons? Oh, the cons are the stuff of legend. This is where we get the term technical debt. The code might work perfectly on their machine, but it's often a house of cards. Lack of tests, no documentation, bizarre workarounds that nobody else can understand. They focus on the happy path, the ideal user journey, but often miss the edge cases that cause everything to crash and burn in production.
And that reliance on abstraction can be a massive liability. When something goes wrong deep in the stack, a framework bug, a database latency issue, they often lack the fundamental knowledge to debug it. They're stuck. It's like a mechanic who can only replace entire engine blocks, but doesn't know how to fix a single piston.
So we have these two archetypes. One builds a masterpiece that might be delivered too late for the party. The other gets to the party immediately, but might be wearing a structurally questionable outfit.
And this isn't just a theoretical debate for the break room. This divide is having a massive, tangible effect on companies right now. You can almost map a company's life cycle to which archetype it prioritizes.
Exactly. In the early days, it's all vibe coders. The pressure to find product market fit is everything. You need to ship, get user feedback, and pivot. A study by the Standish Group found that about 65% of features in a typical software product are rarely or never used. Why would you spend months perfectly building something nobody might not want? The vibe coder's approach is a strategic advantage here.
But then, the company hits a wall. It's usually around the Series B or C funding stage. They have users, they have revenue, and suddenly their app, built on quick decisions and vibes, starts to buckle. Scaling issues, security vulnerabilities, and bugs become constant fires. The development velocity that was their greatest asset grinds to a halt because every new feature has to be awkwardly bolted onto a shaky foundation.
This is where the expert coder gets a call, often with a blank check. Companies bring them in to be the adults in the room, to refactor, to rebuild, to create a stable platform. But this transition is incredibly painful. It often involves rewriting huge chunks of the system, which is expensive, time-consuming, and demoralizing for the original vibe coders who see their work being torn down.
And the financial impact is staggering. A report by Stripe estimated that developers spend over 17 hours per week dealing with technical debt, maintenance, and bad code. That's nearly half their work week. For a company with a 50-person engineering team, that's over $15 million per year in wasted salary just dealing with the mess. That's a direct result of this imbalance.
But the companies that get it right, the ones that become truly dominant, they learn to manage this tension. They don't see it as an or, but an and. They create structures where both tribes can thrive.
How do they do that?
They create small, autonomous skunkworks teams for innovation, staffed with vibe coders and product visionaries. Their job is to explore, prototype, and validate new ideas quickly. Fail fast, as they say. And then they have strong platform and infrastructure teams led by expert coders. These teams build the robust, scalable tools and services that the entire company runs on. They set the guardrails and the standards. They're the keepers of the kingdom's foundation.
Crucially, they enforce processes like mandatory code review. This is where the magic happens. The vibe coder submits a quick, clever PR, and the expert coder reviews it. The conversation isn't, "this is bad," it's, "this is a great solution for the user, but have you considered this edge case? What if we structure it like this to make it more maintainable?" It becomes a mentorship loop.
That's the ideal. The vibe coder learns about scalability and clean code from a master, and the expert coder is reminded of the importance of business agility and user-centric thinking. They make each other better. The company gets innovation and stability.
So the real conspiracy here isn't that one type is trying to undermine the other. The conspiracy is that the industry often frames it as a binary choice. You either move fast and break things, or you move slow and build monuments.
And the truth, the secret that the best tech leaders know is that you have to do both. You need the energy of the vibe and the wisdom of the expert. It's about building a symphony, not just a soloist. You need the jazz musician who can improvise and the classical musician who knows every note of the theory. Together, they create something truly new and enduring.
The goal for any company should be to stop seeing this as a war between two tribes and start building a culture where they can coexist, collaborate, and ultimately build something neither could alone.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's not expert versus vibe, it's expert and vibe. That's the winning formula.
So up till now, we have talked about the strengths, the weaknesses, and the massive impact this culture clash has on companies. But I feel like we only scratched the surface of the human cost.
The human cost is enormous. This divide creates real tension in teams. I've seen it. You get a vibe coder who just shipped a fantastic new feature that users love. They're the hero. But the expert coder on review looks at the code and has a minor heart attack. It's full of potential security holes, it doesn't follow the established patterns, and it's going to be a nightmare to maintain. The vibe coder feels micromanaged and unappreciated. The expert feels like they're the only one who cares about the long-term health of the product. It creates resentment.
It's a classic case of mismatched incentives and unrecognized labor. The vibe coder is rewarded for visible output, shipping features. The expert coder's work is often invisible. How do you measure the bugs that didn't happen, the outages that weren't caused, the performance degradation that wasn't experienced because they spent 2 days optimizing a database query? That work is crucial, but it's harder to put on a sprint retrospective slide.
And this plays directly into hiring, which is already a nightmare for tech companies. You have interview loops that are famously designed by and for expert coders. The brutal whiteboard sessions, the leak code puzzles, the deep dives on arcane algorithms. It's a system that is almost perfectly engineered to filter out brilliant vibe coders who can actually build the product you need, while letting through people who can reverse a binary tree on a whiteboard but might struggle with the practicalities of a large, messy codebase.
So companies end up with a homogeneous team of experts, which sounds good on paper, but you lose that crucial element of speed and creative, sometimes reckless innovation. Or they swing the other way and hire a team of pure vibers, and they end up with a product that is incredibly innovative for 6 months and then completely collapses under its own weight. Finding the balance in the hiring process itself is a huge challenge.
Let's talk about the tools, because they're both a cause and a symptom of this divide. The modern tech stack is almost designed for vibe coders. Frameworks like React, Vue, Rails, they're incredible abstractions. They allow a developer to build a complex, interactive application without necessarily understanding the underlying JavaScript event loop or how a database management system works.
That's a superpower. It democratizes development and accelerates creation. But it also creates what some call the expert gap. The abstraction layers are so good that a developer can have a very successful career without ever needing to peek behind the curtain. The problem arises when the curtain tears, when there's a memory leak in the React render cycle, or a performance issue with active record queries. The vibe coder might not have the mental model to debug it. They're stuck.
Meanwhile, the tools for experts are often about control, precision, and observation. Low-level profiling tools, advanced debugging, systems monitoring. They're designed for someone who wants to know not just what is happening, but why it's happening at the metal. It's a different world.
This also changes the very nature of mentorship. An expert mentor might start with first principles. Let's understand how the network stack works. A vibe mentor might be more like, here's the library we use for networking. Here's the API call that works. Just copy this pattern. Both are valid, but they create very different kinds of junior developers.
So what's the solution? How does a team lead or a CTO actually manage this? I think it starts with recognition and vocabulary. Giving these archetypes a name, like we're doing today, is the first step. It allows you to talk about the tension without it being personal. You can say, as a team, we're leaning too far into the vibe mindset on this project, and we're accruing debt. How can we inject some expert principles? Or we're over-engineering this. Let's embrace a little vibe energy and just get a prototype out.
Absolutely. It's about creating psychological safety for both styles. The expert needs to feel safe to say, this code is too risky to ship without being called a bottleneck. The vibe coder needs to feel safe to say, I don't know how this works under the hood, can you explain it? Without feeling like an imposter.
And it's about tailoring career ladders. Not every great vibe coder needs to become an architect who thinks deeply about system design. They could become a staff prototyper or a principal of developer experience. Conversely, not every expert needs to become a people manager. They can be a fellow of systems integrity, or whatever title you want to give them. You have to value and reward both paths officially.
We also have to talk about the role of leadership. Non-technical founders or product managers often see the vibe coder as the hero because they deliver the shiny new thing. They see the expert coder as the naysayer, the one slowing things down. Tech leaders have to educate the entire business on the concept of technical debt. They have to translate, we need to refactor this module into business terms. If we don't spend 2 weeks on this now, we will be unable to add this critical feature 6 months from now, which will cost us X amount in potential revenue.
It's about making the invisible visible, using metrics, tracking how much time is spent on bug fixes versus new features, monitoring build times and test suite duration. These are all indicators of the health of your codebase, a health that is directly determined by the balance between expert and vibe practices.
And let's not forget the ultimate unifier, the on-call rotation. Nothing brings a vibe coder and an expert coder together like being paged at 3 a.m. because the website is down. The vibe coder, who might have written the feature, and the expert coder, who understands the infrastructure, are forced to collaborate under pressure. That shared trauma is a powerful team-building exercise. They quickly learn to appreciate what the other brings to the table.
That's a brutal but very true point. Nothing fosters mutual respect quite like a Sev 1 incident. I see why you wanted those extra error handlers now. And I see why you wanted to ship this feature so quickly. The users really do love it.
So the takeaway isn't that one tribe will win. The genie is out of the bottle. The abstractions will only get better, empowering more vibe coders. And the systems will only get more complex, requiring more expert coders to manage them. The future is hybrid.
The most successful developer of the future might be what I call the Vexpert. Someone who has the intuitive, product-focused drive of the vibe coder, but who has taken the time to cultivate the deep, foundational knowledge of the expert. They know when to move fast and when to slow down. They know which abstractions to trust and which ones to question.
I love that, the Vexpert. They can build a quick and dirty prototype to validate an idea, but they also know exactly what parts of it need to be rewritten with care before it goes to 1 million users. They are bilingual, fluent in both the language of business agility and the language of engineering excellence.
Until we achieve that nirvana, the rest of us have to learn to work together, to appreciate the other tribe, to understand that we need both the thrill of the vibe and the wisdom of the expert to build the future without it crashing down around us.
Couldn't agree more. That's all the time we have for today. A huge thank you to our listeners for joining this deep dive into the heart of tech culture.
If this conversation resonated with you, or if you have strong feelings about which tribe you belong to, let us know in the comments section. Tell us your stories of collaboration or clash.
And if you haven't already, please subscribe.
Until then, keep building. Just maybe check with someone else before you push to main.